各位委員、各位嘉賓、各位政府官員啦，多謝大家翻嚟啦。而家復會先。
Right, thank you for coming back. On behalf of the Subcommittee on Hawker Policy, I would like to welcome the administration, deputations, and our guest, Professor Mi Kam. You can put on the earpiece and choose the channel that you prefer. Channel 0, floor, Channel 1, Cantonese, Channel 2, English, Channel 3, Putonghua. And I want to remind the deputations that neither your verbal nor written submissions will be covered by the Electrical Powers and Privileges Ordinance. If you have any supplementary remarks in writing, you can give them to our staff after the meeting. So each deputation will have 3 minutes. Mr. Wong Kwok Heng? All right, no problem. So let's start. Ms. Lau Chung-yin. Yes, Chairman. We have to allow different types of hawker bazaars to operate in the different districts. Look at Tin Shui as an example.
We've got only one link read market, and also shopping malls monopolize the business activities in Tin Shui. We need hawker bazaar to sell basic commodities that are affordable to the grassroots. In different communities, we should consider the needs of the community and develop different types of hawker bazaars. We should not just focus on tourism bazaars that cater to tourists or craftsmen. The hawker control team has immense powers in enforcement. When gaifangs are accused of illegal hawking, although they have not really done so, when they are tried in court, there is no defense at all. So I hope that there can be a proper monitoring mechanism for the exercise of power by the hawker control team. Thank you. Ms. Fong Sao-ying, thank you. My surname is Fong. I've lived in Tin Shui Wai for more than a decade. When we first moved in, my kids were young. I had to look after them. So day one, I set foot on Hong Kong. I became a hawker to make a living. I really thank the administration. Now, it has provided Tin Shui market for us to do business, but there is no business there. So I have to continue to work as a hawker. I want to be granted a license because I am so scared whenever I see a member of the hawker control team when I'm hawking, because I'm worried that they would arrest me and I'll be fined. I'm so poor. Why do we want hawker licenses? We want to hawk at places with high circulation. For instance, somewhere near Tin Yat Estate and near Jinsa Plaza. I hope we can hawk there at fixed locations so we don't have to worry so much. It doesn't matter, take your time. Tin Shou market is not bad. It's just that the location doesn't have high circulation, and the place is rather stuffy and hot. So I'll feel dizzy after staying there for 8 hours, even without hawking. So I hope I can be given an itinerant hawker license so that I can hawk for a couple of hours a day to make a decent living. I'm not asking much. For one time I was frequently arrested. I've been selling wallets and handbags for a long time because I'm not confident whether other commodities can sell or not. So I've been selling handbags and purses and wallets. I was arrested so frequently that I became a security worker. I could earn $7,000 per month for 8 hours. So the income was better, but I have to look after my family, and I also have got some illness. I am a hawker in Tin Shui. My surname is Poon. Why do I work as a hawker? Because I like this trade. I am illiterate. I'm not well educated. Being hawker is just a job. I just want to make a living. So please do allow us to continue. All we want is to make a living to support our families. We rely on income from hawking to raise our kids. My husband has got a job too. Now as a hawker, I can look after my kids and also bring home some income. Do you want us to apply for CSSA or to work as a hawker? You can consider that as our career. Why do you want to displace us? I have no other skills. I can only hawk here. So why not allow us to hawk here? We want to look after our kids. If we're able-bodied persons, and if we became CSSA recipients, we'll lose our dignity. Even our kids need dignity. It's wrong for us to go on social welfare if we can make a living ourselves. Well, the things are so cheap. So the prices here are very low. They are more affordable to the grassroots. Not everyone can afford luxury goods and brand names. Well, we can offer cheap and simple items to meet the needs of shoppers. Well, this item is available at $20 here. So it's a win-win situation for all. We can help the shoppers, and they can also help us to make a living. We're all happy. And we build up relationships here. This is so important. And I just want to add one more sentence. Please give us a license. Thank you. Yes, this is something for the administration. Mr. Kong Kin-shing, thank you. Many kaifongs have come all the way from Tin Shui, but not all of them can be available. Some of them have to make a living. So I hope that the chairman and the administration can understand our situation. I am engaged in manufacturing as well. Most hawkers buy and sell items. In Dr. Koh's proposal, there is the idea to change idle or less patronized public markets to cooked food centers. We consider whether it can be changed to so-called manufacturing centers so as to echo the proposal to have food trucks in Hong Kong. Can we turn a public market into a manufacturing center? Kai-fongs have some views about this. I would like to play the views of Kai-fongs to you. I am Eva. Good morning. I do care for this proposal to turn less patronized public market to off-food cooked food center. Can we turn that to a manufacturing center so that even craftsmen can be added? I make desserts. Social worker asked me to make 500 moon cakes. I could only make 300 as a result because my flat is too small. I don't have enough room in my fridge. So these are 300 moon cakes were distributed to Kai-fongs who really like them, and they said they were willing to buy a moon cake at $15 each. So I could make $4,500 in 3 days, discounting costs and labor costs. I could make $3,000. Unfortunately, I don't have a license. My flat is too small. I cannot sell mooncakes I make. If there is a manufacturing center, I can have an opportunity to develop. So please give consideration to this idea. Well, there's still some time left for me to supplement. The proposal on food truck has started this discussion when perhaps the food manufacturing center license can be considered together with the idea of a food truck and also new hawker licenses. Thank you. Mr. WAN Siu-kei, Chairman and members of the subcommittee. The FS mentioned in his budget that food trucks can be introduced. I am all for this, although I don't know what form the license should take. Should it be a restaurant license or hawker license? I don't know. But first, we must set up a licensing regime. However, in the US or Europe, a food truck would cost $0.7 million or $500,000 to make, but my idea here will only cost $117,000. This book is published by a friend in Taiwan. He operates food trucks in Taiwan. 25 different food trucks are mentioned in this book, from conversion to setup, decoration, and operation. About $100,000 is needed for a food truck to be set up and running. Now, this is from Japan, K-truck. Well, it's a very small van, 3.4 meters by 1.48 meters, compared with the 5.5 tons and 10-meter long lorry in Hong Kong is just half the size, and I think it would fit into our narrow streets better. Starting from 2008, Taiwan has got mobile food trucks. Now they are become important tourism attractions. Taiwan, Japan, and Hong Kong share something in common. We have narrow alleys and streets. We're not like large Western countries where they have thoroughfares and passageways. Now, if we turn a 5.5-ton LGV to a food truck, I'm afraid that would be a burden on our traffic. And the FS said on the 5th of April that the tourism board is studying overseas experience for the introduction of a food truck, and there is no time frame yet. I'm afraid that we won't have this good idea implemented, not even in 2046. Now, I'm already designing a food truck that will suit Hong Kong. The size is 3.4 by 1.4 meters. It's the same size as the K-trucks commonly seen in Japan and Taiwan. Now, it is modeled after this one. There is stove and electricity and water supply and tables and chairs. For people who are interested, please come and take a look. This van only costs $100,000 or more, and see how feasible it is for preparing food in our streets. Thank you. Mr. HUI Chi-fung. Thank you. I'm a district councillor in a constituency where there are many hawkers. I can share with you my views on our hawker policy. According to the administration, they do treasure hawkers, which are part of our local flavor and also a characteristic of Hong Kong. But when it comes to implementation, all policies by FHD are gradually displacing our hawkers, trying to kill this hawking culture. Why do I say so? Because there are a lot of proposals such as reprovisioning the fixed pitches, refurbishing them, giving them electricity supply, but all these are not practical. They only add to the operational difficulties of hawkers. We always say that there is no continuity. A license is cannot be inherited by a licensee's children. Can we allow the assistant of a hawker to inherit a license? And some fixed features are provisioned so many times that licensees are not interested in operating them anymore, and you give them $120,000. Now, there is a consensus in the Central Western District Council for such recovered licenses to be issued out again. So you only pay lip service to your hawker policies. You say that you do treasure this local characteristics. I do agree that hawkers do generate some nuisance to residents. As a district councillor, I receive complaints from time to time. So we should not consider hawkers the hawker issue as one for enforcement and monitoring without any idea of development. Can we do it together? Can we have measures to allow our hawker policies to have continuity so that we can preserve this important culture and characteristic of Hong Kong? As Mr. Wu Chiu said, we should not consider it as a deployment of resources and do not just do it to make stakeholders happy. Now, if we can engage the public, if we can turn hawker markets into night markets, then we can continue to develop. We should not just treat it as a way of distributing our resources and to silence people by making them happy. Mr. Loi-ying, thank you. We are屯門Community Concern Group. We have done a questionnaire survey on hawker issues. Residents claimed that they patronized hawkers because things were cheap. What they didn't like about hawkers is environmental hygiene.屯門has got many cooked food hawkers that operate at night. Can license with limited operating hours be issued? Because at night, when restaurants are closed, people need somewhere to eat. Now people are using trolleys and carts to sell food. If the government can provide safety standards for trolleys and food carts, then there is no need to introduce food trucks to Hong Kong. And can you lower the threshold for a food factory license? Because the threshold is so high now that people don't want to take the trouble to apply for one. Thank you. Mr. Chung-tat, the government talks about hawker policy instead of trying to eliminate them. At least this is some progress. And before the Star Ferry and Queen's Pier, the government was only cared for development. Now they talk about preservation of our heritage, but they're using some counterfeit monuments to replace our real, genuine monuments. Well, in this paper submitted to the task force, the government said that hawker policy is not for poverty alleviation. Rather, it can be regarded as a tourism initiative. That's true, but before we implement a new hawker policy, we have to understand that it is small-scale business for grassroots. Tourism attraction is just a bonus. Who, where, how, and what, and also relationship with the community are also part of the issue. The government should have a comprehensive understanding of hawkers and comprehensive study of hawker policies elsewhere before we have a proper idea. Please don't think that by providing a cart or trolley that is good enough.
Don't just attract tourists to hawker areas. Don't repeat the mistake made at Tinsao Bazaar, where the patronage is too low. We need district council support in mapping our policy. And DAB said earlier in district councils that hawkers should be stamped out. Now, we are talking about development of hawkers, and DAB members suddenly had a change in their stance, and they said that they are supporting now the hawker bazaars. Now, if we have such people who don't have a good stance in discussing hawker policies at districts, we'll end up with something very bad. When we talk about bottom-up approach, we should involve the shop owners, the community residents, and the hawkers. And we should not be eradicating the hawkers, and we should not leave it to the government only to make decisions for hawkers. The government said that the project proponents can try to identify locations and do studies themselves. And most of the times, it's the NGOs who are doing all these. How much resources do NGOs have? Now, if we just have business conglomerates undertaking such studies, then we will have the business conglomerates dominating the hawker areas, and the hawker bazaars will just become tourist spots. Mr. Leung Tai next. I am involved in jade trading. I've been a hawker for over a decade. I hope that I can be given a license. I am a single parent. My children live on the mainland for over the past decade. I've been fending for myself alone in Hong Kong. I'm now in the 60s. If you don't give me a license, am I to apply for CSSA? I have all sorts of sicknesses, illnesses like diabetes and so on. Should I be given a license, or should I apply for CSSA? So it's best that the government can give me a license so that I can be self-reliant. I don't want any assistance or social security from the government. Please give me a license, and you can decide whether to grant a license based on the hawker's capability. I'm not very articulate. I just want a license so that I can make a living and to pay for my rent, and then I can feed myself. Then I will be very happy. And well, now I have to go to and fro from Sham Shui Po. Sometimes I put up a store in Sham Shui Po, and FEHD hawker control team comes. Then I got scared, and then I have developed heart disease. And the doctor told me that, well, it's not sustainable. You will have a big problem if you go on like this. So what choice have I got? Am I to apply for CSSA? if I can get a license, then I can make a living for myself. I would do hawking till 70s, 80s. I don't hope to get CSSA. I don't need CSSA from the government. Ms. Liu. The government, Hong Kong has upheld its policy as a free trade policy, and there has been sort of auctioning of licenses in different arenas, and the government has been putting restrictions in the hawker market, and I think the government should treat hawkers like it treats other trades. It should close down the wealth gap by doing this. Under certain restrictions and regulations, the government should issue new hawker licenses. Since 70s, licenses have been the government has stopped issuing licenses, and the number has dropped from 20,000 to 6,000, and hawkers have been asked to move into public markets. If we get fewer and fewer licensed hawkers, that means that people are forced to become illegal hawkers, and it is even more difficult to regulate them. In the proposal, it is said that hawking activities are considered economic activities. But we see that many hawkers have already become shop owners. And it goes to show that there is upward mobility for hawkers. It's the big market, small government policy, and also high land prices have made people want to become hawkers instead of shop owners. For example, in log food, a store or shop can cost as much as $10,000 or $20,000 in rent. So many shops have closed down, and hawkers can provide diversified choices and can try to break the monopoly of business conglomerates. We can promote local economy and also stimulate development of tourism by having hawkers. We support having a hawker bazaar in every district, for example, flea market and dawn market and so on. In Kwai Lam Street night market, we see many ethnic minorities putting up stores and selling goods themselves. That provides the opportunity for them to move up socially. And also for many hawker policies, they have become outdated. What do we mean by hawkers? No cash transaction, and well, all these provisions have to be revised and amended. We should also manage hawkers in a modern and scientific manner. We should strengthen the training for the hawker control team. We should also step up moral or civic education for residents, because our policies have lagged behind the changing of times. And many people, they said that people are not willing to be teachers, so now there is a lack of training. Mr. HO Chi-chung. Good morning, everyone. We've been waiting for so long for this open hearing or public hearing, and many deputations have said that the government should not only send representatives from Food and Health Bureau to attend the meeting. It just shows that they are just viewing the hawker policy from that perspective. We've never seen representatives from the economic departments and tourism departments and so on. Mr. Stephen Ho, you are from DAB. And it's good that you are willing to hold this public hearing. But members of your party may have different views from yours. In Shanghai, there is a high demand for cooked food, and many kaifongs also make a living out of the operation. And the DAB members try to oppress hawker operations, and they even claim credit for that. So please go back and talk to your members. We are just ordinary members of the public without any resources. I think we should support hawkers. In Shanghai, we conducted an opinion poll. We used a dozen students to gather views from 2,000 people. On hand, I have 350 questionnaires completed. 320 residents have high regard to hawkers. Over 300 of them said that the problems can be resolved and there should be a cooked food night market for them. And of them, 300 said that hawkers should be allowed to do business under flyovers, and we should not be cordon off or fence off these areas for doing works. We also received views which oppose hawkers. They oppose hawkers because they think the hawkers are not licensed. And why? Because the government is not willing to issue licenses. They still believe that the problems can be resolved through better coordination. Hygiene problems can be resolved in Japan, Taiwan, and Singapore. How come that Hong Kong is not doing it? As what Mrs. Carrie Lam said, there is just a political question, not technical question in the world. Can't we resolve these problems through a technical solution? Lastly, I don't want to see this happening. The government is considering issuing new licenses. But if the licenses or the stores are monopolized by the link read or big conglomerates, and I think Hong Kong people's right to economic activities are protected by the ICCPR and other United Nations conventions, so that people's livelihood can be well protected. Next one, Ms. WONG Sau-chi. Chairman, my last name is Wong. I am from Shui. I sell cooked food, pig's intestines, fried pig's intestines. I'm happy to be here. I've lived in Shui for over a decade. I've been a hawker for over a decade too. I want to be self-reliant after I retire, so I want to sell food. But the hawker control team is suppressing our activities. They want to chase us away. In Shui, residents appreciate our cooked food stores. The main reason being, I want to become a hawker mainly because I want to be self-reliant. We attach a lot of importance to hygiene. Next to my trolley, I always have a garbage bag for people to dispose of their rubbish. So I want to keep the places clean as much as possible. We won't pollute the place. I hope that the government can issue me a license to operate under the flyover. So that's all I want to say. Thank you. Next one, Ms. CHAN Choi-kwai. Good morning. I have been a hawker for over 20 years. I've been offering sausages, fried pancakes, and so on. These are local characteristic snacks. I hope that the government can give me a license. While some have operated for over a decade, I for over 2 decades. So I hope that we could be given priority in terms of using of license. I've been operating near Chor Yuen Estate and also Shangshui railway station. My food is safe, it's hygienic. Primary students would like to patronize us. Well, some of the primary students that I used to serve have now become grown-ups, and the whole family come and buy food from us. In Taiwan, even if they live in Taiwan, Changkwano, and Taipei, they come and buy food from me. Because of the control and regulative efforts of the government, I tried to operate in one place at a time from this place, and then I moved to another place, and my customers always try to look for us. So please give us a license. When you talk about food trucks, they are being operated by the big business conglomerates. If food trucks are to operate, then you will kill our business. I am a single parent. I've been operating for over 10 years to support my 2 kids. The DAB, the link rate, and district councillors would try to eradicate us. We don't have any room for survival. Is this what the government wants? It wants us to apply for CSA. We don't want CSSA. I hope that you can give us a license to operate near Shangshui MTR station and near Choi-yun estate. We make sure that the hygiene condition is good and proper. We want to pass on our business to our next generation. This is all I want to say. Next one, Ms. WONG Sau-fa. Good morning. I have been a hawker for 28 years in Shangshui. I've been selling fish meat balls, turnips, and so on. And things have been fine for over 20 years. It's just up to last year that we are not allowed to operate under the flyover. We are now doing our business at the roadside, and our area is fenced off, and it is making things difficult for us. The government is talking about issuing new licenses. I hope that the senior government officials can care for the Shangshui hawkers. We've been operating for many years. Please take on board the fact that we've been in the business for several decades, and we offer food with local character. And every hawker or store has its own offers its food with local flavor, and we collect our own garbage, and so we make sure that the place is clean. So please give us a license, government. Mr. TAM Keng-yeung. Good morning, Chairman and members. I've been in the catering industry. I'm now in my 66 years old. And some 10 years ago, the catering industry was transformed, and we had difficulty in finding a job, so I was forced to become a hawker. And when I was in the catering industry, I sort of objected to the hawker business. Now I'm a hawker myself. I understand more about the trade, and I think the government is increasingly tightening up its policies on hawkers, and is trying to kill hawkers. And such hawker policy was mapped out some 20 years ago. The Hong Kong government would like to turn Hong Kong into an international metropolis, so it was trying to stifle the existence of hawkers. That was a policy back then. In the past 30 years, the world has changed, and some states are even making open some state secrets. And for a person wanted in the UK, well, 30 years passed, the wanted person was no longer wanted. So for over 30 years, the government has been trying to eradicate hawkers. Why can't the government think about changing its policy? Why can't the government now consider assisting hawkers? In any place where there are people living, there are hawkers. How come the government is trying to kill the hawkers? Are the hawkers endangering the society? No, that's not the case. In fact, the hawkers contribute to the society, especially to the society's economy. Hawkers are part of the economy. Hawkers have to buy things from manufacturers. So, and then they sell the goods to customers. So all these different processes in the economy are interlinked. So if you try to eradicate hawkers, then you will suffer a loss in the economy. So you must change your policy. So that's it. Next one, Mr. Chen Keng-yeung. I would like to talk about cooked food stores on street. I think the government should not just have the thinking back in the 60s and 70s. Whenever we talk about on-street hawkers, they said that there may be hygiene problems and there will be food safety problems. They want on-street cooked food stores to disappear altogether, but actually they are very much welcome by residents and tourists. And people are also often asking, where can these cooked food stores be found on the street? From the trader's perspective, we often say that in a street where there is a section where cooked food stores are placed, and then there is another section for dried goods, then we can attract more customers. We're excited when we discuss all these things. Can the government department think about this, trying to provide for on-street cooked food stores if the circumstances permit?
Look at nearby cities like Singapore, Taipei, and some cities in the mainland. So there are cooked food streets, and they are popular among tourists. So is it that those governments are not concerned about environmental hygiene? Why is it that we still have outdated thinking? In fact, our government can be very efficient. Let's work out some arrangements that will benefit all, the public, the government, and also the operators. And there's no use revitalizing the stores only. You have to revitalize the people. You can't rely on the dead to revitalize the stores, for example. In fact, many of the assistants have been helping the licensees for a decade or 2 decades or even more, but then they can't get the license when the license is given back to the government. So please allow the assistants to inherit these licenses. There are only about 6,000 on-street pitches or stalls, and we really must not let this trade shrink. Mr. Lau Kai-ming. So there was the 5-year assistance scheme helping to help us make improvements, and in fact we welcome the 5-year plan. But then, in this 5-year assistance plan, there is also an arrangement whereby licensees have to give their licenses back to the government when they're only given $120,000. And the assistants who have been helping the licensees for decades will become unemployed. Now, they are not young. Can you expect them to acquire new skills and get new jobs? You know, on Hong Kong Island, there is a place which used to have over 100 stores, but now we have stores which are few and far between. So please allow the assistants to get the licenses so that they can continue to operate these stores. And 3 times 4 is a policy which started in the 1960s. We want to sell a larger variety of goods, but then we don't have enough space. And then if we put goods beyond the 3 times 4 area, we are prosecuted, we are fined. So I think when enforcement action is taken, the department should err on the relaxed side. Mr. Wong Tung-kyu, I represent the hawkers operating in Tai Fat Hau area. In June 2013, the 5-year assistance scheme was launched. So assistance has been given to hawkers to carry out some improvement works. I want to say that the assistance to the licensees are quite young, and I want to say that in fact the stores sell very interesting items like small potted plants and also handicraft items. And I think Wan Chai is a district where we have the merging of the old and the new. So I think these stores and the businesses should be preserved, and please give the licenses to the assistants when the licensees no longer need the licenses. Thank you. Mr. Wong Kai. Yes, Chairman. I represent LEUNG Street East and LEUNG Street West. We've already carried out the improvement works for the stores, but some licensees, the store lessees, are old. They get $120,000 from the government and they retire, and the assistants lose their jobs. Some licensees do not have children who can inherit the business. They want to allow the assistants to continue to operate. So I hope that the government can allow the assistants to get the licenses. Yes, next, Ms. Lee Kawa. We operate mainly on Marble Road and Chunyang Street. And, many assistants will lose their jobs. Many of them are already 50 years old, 60 years old. They will not be able to find other jobs. For example, they can't, say, work in a restaurant to deliver food to customers. And the FHD doesn't allow us to operate beyond the 3 times 4, and I hope that you can relax this restriction a bit so that we can store more goods in our stores. Thank you. Mr. Chung-tat Wing, in fact, I am 16 now, and over 50 years ago, I started selling newspapers on the road. Previously, I could sell 2,000 to 3,000 newspapers every day, but now only 100 or 200. So you can see that this is really a declining trade. I hope that you can allow, but now I now sell bottled water, but I hope that you can allow us to sell carton drinks and also lychee packets. And when the hawkers surrender their licenses, they get $120,000, but we don't get anything. Previously, there were over 1,000 newspaper store licenses. Now there are only about 400. So why is it that you cannot allow the assistants or others who are interested to get the licenses and operate the business. Thank you. Thank you very much. Madam Leung Wingman. Yes, thank you, Chairman. I speak on behalf of the Civic Party. In fact, I was watching the live broadcast of the meeting, and I heard what the hawkers said, and I am now in a learning mode. I'm in a listening mode, and I hope that government officials are also in a learning mode and listening mode today. We really need to solve this long-standing problem. In fact, little progress has been made. The problem started in the colonial days. And the government's policy is to manage the hawkers and control them or even suppress them. And thanks to the pressure given to the government by the subcommittee, we have a brainstorming session like this one. So government should look at whether the number of fixed pitches should increase. Government should also consider issuing new Tai Pai Tong licenses, and some vacant markets should be turned into cooked food centers. So we can see that the government has decided that it should be more proactive and it should act as a facilitator. The Civic Party appreciates such a change in the government's mindset, and I hope that Dr. Koh will adopt such a mindset in promoting the hawker trade. The government always says that there are two main concerns. First, to find a suitable location, and second, safety considerations. In fact, the Civic Party and social workers have been trying to find suitable sites for hawker bazaars. We hope that the government, especially the FEHD, can help these people, and the barriers should be removed as far as possible. I don't think the Food and Health Bureau alone can make things work. If we can have a successful revolution, then we will be able to promote the local community economy. So we hope that the government can try to cut red tape and remove barriers, so that people who want to become hawkers can have a place to operate. Thank you. I think all the deputations have already spoken, and the administration can now respond, and then Professor Ng can also give her observations. Yes, thank you. Chairman, I thank the deputations for coming today. We've heard your views very clearly. And we will try to take on board your views when we go forward. There is this consultation exercise, and after the exercise, we'll have to work out some concrete measures. There are some vacant market stalls, and also there may be sites in the various districts suitable for hawker activities. So we'll be looking at all these options. All right, so Professor Ng. I will not repeat what I said in the last session. I think I'm also in a learning mode, and I think I've learned a lot through listening to what the deputations said. I think all those who have spoken know how to shape space with their equipment. They can make the place, so to speak. This place-making concept is used in many places, and so we have to try to incorporate this concept in the process. So I want to say that, in fact, even if we have space, you have to make sure that there are people, there is access, and I think I think the government should also know more about this concept. And various concepts have been put forward: markets, bazaars, local community economy, flea market, food trucks, and also hawkers' carts, and so on and so forth. And we need both time and space to make things happen. So how can we find the right time and space to make these happen? So the government, as well as the hawkers, should consider whether we really need different types of licenses. And we also need to have a sound management policy. So all these need to be ironed out further. Then concerning the conditions attached to different types of licenses, whether we need to impose restrictions on the types of goods to be sold, the area of each store. And then I am one who supports environmental protection, and so should there be certain restrictions as to the types of goods that can be sold? For example, is there a need to try to minimize pollution and the production of waste, for example? And also, of course, the food has to be safe, and the operation has to be in compliance with food safety legislation. Now, there are these concepts like a bottom-up approach, and other advantages that will be brought about through promoting hawker activities. Many are of the view that the government has not done enough. And if we all think that hawker bazaars can bring multiple advantages, then we shouldn't just blame the government for not having done enough. We must also do something. We should do our own part. And we should also try to give suggestions to the government. And with regard to the management of hawkers, I agree with one deputation in that the existing mode of operation or management rather is outdated. If we are to have hawker bazaars, food trucks, flea markets, and the like. We need to work out effective ways to manage space. And as an academic, I want to talk about a concept. Now, we've recently invited invited an Australian scholar to come to give a talk, and he talked about an iceberg. As you know, for an iceberg, 1/7 of it is above water. What he is trying to say is that concerning the shopping malls, the capitalist economy, in fact, they only represent a tip of the iceberg, and they have to be supported by concepts like reallocation of resources and mutual benefits. We shouldn't just look at how economic needs can be met. I agree with the Kai-fongs from Thiên Choi-kwai. They say that they, of course, have to satisfy the demands of the customers. At the same time, they are doing their work based on their expertise. So let's try to find more space and then find the right way to use the space so as to satisfy economic, social, and environmental needs. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Ng. I want to remind the government that the purpose of having such hearings is to provide a platform for exchange of views. So we welcome imaginative and even wild ideas from the deputations, and the government has to frankly tell the deputations what it can do, what it can't do, and the limitations or constraints that it faces. You have to tell people what you are doing, and you have to be very transparent. You should make use of fora like this public hearing to make known your position.
Mr. Wong Kwok-heng and Mr. Leung, Deputy Chairman, and Dr. Kenneth Chan would like to ask questions. Well, we may have a second round. Why don't we have 5 minutes each? Mr. Wong Kwok-heng. Thank you, Chairman. So we've had 2 sessions already. My feelings are mixed because many speakers here have been treated as illegal hawker, as illegal immigrants or criminals. They dare not come to voice out their views in this council. Finally, after the establishment of the ACL government, more than 10 years afterwards, they're able to speak in this council their views on our hawker policy. That's why I feel so. I'm so moved. I must thank Mr. Dr. Ko. He is willing to shoulder the responsibility. He has accepted our suggestion to review the government's policy, hawker policy, and finally, we have this subcommittee set up to deal with this issue, or to deal with this review, which is long overdue since the establishment of the SAR government. On my left-hand side, we have got so-called unlicensed cooked food hawkers coming out to tell us their expertise. In fact, as soon as you have left this council, you are regarded as criminals. It's excellent that you are bold enough to tell us what you do. Professor Madam Lau talked about her creativity, and she had the commendation of Dr. Since when have they got the position and the space to come here to express their views? All right. My question for the administration is, now I must give time for the administration to answer some questions. The first question is, does the administration know how many people in Hong Kong have an assistant license? They are the real operators. And do you know how long have they been in possession of an assistant license? In this and the last session, we have got many organizations from various hawker associations. We have those from Yamate, Temple Street, North Point, so on and so forth. The licensee may already be aged and frail. If he decides to surrender his license, his assistant will at once become unemployed because the assistant cannot operate anymore. So they should be given priority in issuing a license. So administration, can you answer this? I think even Professor Dr. Ng would like to know the number of assistance licenses granted. And does the administration know how many fixed pitches we have in Hong Kong that are idle? Can you give us the figures, please? Mr. Wong? Or rather, Mr. Lam? Mr. Lam, thank you. Well, according to information we have, there are about 5,000 assistant licenses. As regards fixed pitches that are already vacant, I think I'll have to check first. Because I didn't have this information with me. How long are you going to take later? So are you going to give us the information after this meeting, or do we have to wait for a few seconds? I'll see whether I have it in hand. Okay, thank you. So there are about 5,000 assistant licensees. Does the administration know how long have they been in possession of such a license? And can you promise to ask the assistants what is their wish? Do they intend to continue to make a living using that license? I believe Dr. Ng would be interested to know. Because if Dr. Ng has this piece of information, this will help the administration to review our hawker policy. Thank you. We have 2 sessions in the morning and another session in the afternoon, close to 100 individuals and deputations will have made known their views to us after today, and I really thank Dr. Ng and also the deputations and individuals for attending this meeting. I think it will only be right for me to recognize the hard work of Dr. Ko, Secretary for Food and Health, because we asked the administration to propose a considered hawker policy for many years. At least for the 3 terms I've been in this council, I've been pressing very hard for this, and it is only in this term, under the leadership of Professor or Dr. Ko, that we have achieved some progress. So let's put on record our recognition for Dr. Ko's efforts, and I hope our recognition can help Dr. Ko to secure the support and cooperation of other bureaus and departments. because we should reflect very clearly in our record that we need the support and cooperation of other bureaus and departments for Dr. Ko. Under this new thinking, we must note that at least Dr. Ko's bureau has recognized that hawkers are part of our economic activities. If there are things that market economy cannot address, then a proper hawker policy will be able to address this imbalance in market economy. From the paper from Dr. Ko to the Council, he is talking about a bottom-up approach. I understand that many social workers have helped small businesses to organize themselves together. And Dr. Ko is thinking of using district councils as a platform. So the hawker bazaars and markets can secure the support of the local community so that there can be proposals. And Dr. Ko is happy to assist us in liaising with the relevant bureaus and departments. If we can have a clear idea about the division of labor and workflow, Dr. Ko has undertaken to help us to secure the support of relevant departments and bureaus. And I hope our views are also made known to the CS4A, because we cannot just rely on Dr. Ko. If CS4A is really committed, she should offer some assistance, because a good hawker policy will not just benefit our economy, it can also address the various imbalances in market economy. It can mean rice bowls and livelihood for many families. So what I want most is to put on record this. I don't expect any response from the Deputy Secretary. After all, I don't think he is going to give us very special responses. Dr. Kenneth Chen, once again I want to thank the deputations and the individuals for coming this morning to let us know what can be done to assist the development of hawkers. As Dr. said, it is all about placemaking, and the process should be people-oriented. We should do it on the basis of the needs of the local community, so that it will be a bottom-up and very organic process. So it will be first for the local people to tell us their own needs, the needs of the community, what they're willing to do for the community, and what the community wants from them. So I think this idea itself is very important. If we do not have this process, then the policy is not going to work. We must go to individual communities to understand the characteristics of that community and how the aspirations and needs of the people there can be satisfied through this place-making process, and that it can be sustainable. Because at the last session, I did voice out my concerns. At this stage, we voiced out a lot of concepts. I'm just afraid that they will just take away our concepts and sit on them before coming up with some measures that cannot really make our hawker policy feasible and practical. So, through interaction with the administration, I hope we can single out proposals that are really meaningful and significant, so that we can come up with a vision for the future, and we can carry out in-depth discussion of these ideas and make something happen out of it. Now, I don't want to target at the HW Bureau. This has happened with many bureaus. The government may be just parroting what people are saying. You talk about placemaking, they talk about placemaking, you talk about being people-oriented, and they use the same terminology. So, in the process of placemaking, we may have to consider the distribution of interest, allocation of interest, and also the needs of operators of shops already existent in this market. We don't want the administration to sit and watch how district councillors engage in conflicts and confrontations. I'm sure conflicts are bound to appear. We have to ensure that what we discuss here will materialize. We have to address these challenges. I hope deputations and individuals who have expressed their views today can go back and think for us and see how we can turn these ideas into a reality. And as law enforcement officers of FGHD, well, it's not very easy for them to enforce. Licensee or hawkers have to apply for leave from the hawker control team. Otherwise, they cannot go on leave. Even if your family members are sick, you're not allowed to take leave and not open your business today. So this is rather ridiculous. If we do not adjust, if we do not have an overhaul of all these red tapes, this is ridiculous. So a licensee is forced to operate, otherwise he will be fined. What's the point? All right, you don't expect any response from the administration. I am the only one left, and I would like to state our own position as well. Many deputations here talked about their support for hawkers, and of course there are different views from different communities and from Hong Kong as a whole. Some talked about Kwai Lin Street. Let me tell you about that incident. We have collected views from different parties. Last year, the adverse impacts on the local community were quite substantial. We did a questionnaire survey, and we could not find the stakeholders to coordinate. So we had no choice but to ask the administration to take action. Now, our position is we do support hawkers. there should be good interaction between hawkers and the administration and the community. For instance, for that 5-year assistance scheme, we believe there should be interaction and negotiation. But if there is no dialogue and we allow illegal hawkers who have no regard for the rules and regulations to do as they like, then that would mean tremendous pressure on the local community. And that's why we have this meeting to discuss the way forward so that we can have rules and regulations and the pattern to go forward. So there is no question of not listening to the views of the public or being too far away from the local community. Perhaps you don't know how risky it was. From 6 pitches, it grew to 30, and then the hawkers did business until 6 a.m. and the whole place was littered, and that was so dangerous. And I hope everyone here can do a good management and coordination job, and we're willing to help to coordinate. No matter what hawker policy the government is going to introduce, I hope it can be feasible.
I hope the government can collect all the information you need and can provide us with the relevant information. Mr. Wong asked about vacant stores, information on vacant stores. Can you provide us with the figures? Because the trade has been saying that you should be coming up with such figures, because the figures have everything to do with your policies. Say if the store measures, say, around 100 square feet, then you can make fewer stores if you have the stores measuring 75 square feet. So this is what the government should do, should collect all the information. You should also do a coordinating work, share with us the difficulties you face. Try to talk to the community residents, especially those who would like to join the hawker trade. There might not be a channel for them to communicate with you at present. You should build such channels so that they can develop sustainably, and also understanding can be garnered from the Kai-fongs and community residents. In this regard, District Council is a rather appropriate platform. There is no better platform than the District Council. The District Councillors are elected by the community residents. And say, if the District Councillor for Kwai Lam Street, he is elected by the Kai-fongs in that street, so he has to be accountable to the residents. And also coordination. If the hawkers undertake not to create nuisance, can the residents support be gathered to allow them to operate that? So what is the government going to do? How are you going to assess the situation? We're pressed for time today. Chairman, as for the information you would like to have, I'll ask my colleague to elaborate first. Thank you, Chairman. With regard to figures, at the end of 2014, in the 43 fixed pitch hawker areas, close to 600 stores are vacant. The ratio, please. And those include vacant stores originally there, and also stores vacated under the assistance scheme. So these are the 600 stores. and excluding stores which are located near the staircase discharge points. There are 250 of them. These are not appropriate for providing stores. The remaining ones total 300. In our review for licensing of fixed pitch hawker license, we will look at individual hawker areas, and in looking at aspects including fire safety, environmental hygiene, business environments, and also the relevant departments' opinions and district councillors and residents' views. Sorry. Dr. Kenneth Cheng, do you want to speak again? If not, then we'll have a second round, 4 minutes each in the second round. And perhaps the administration can continue to respond to my question. Thank you, Chairman. With regard to the bottom-up process, we will follow up at the FHB. As I said, within our own policy portfolio, we will look at areas whose use has not been maximized, and we will come up with specific proposals ASAP. The Secretary has said that public markets which have not been fully utilized will be converted into off-street cooked food centers. When we have something specific, we'll definitely report it to the SC here. I also have kept saying that deputations here are very concerned about developments in your own district. So please try to help us out by identifying suitable locations, and then through your district councillors reflect your views to us, and then we can have further discussions. At the end of the day, the success of the hawker policy depends on striking a balance among various factors. And one thing which is important is, if we are to serve a particular district, we have to take heed of views from various parties in the district. The Secretary has kept saying that we should strike a balance. And from our perspective, we would be looking at food safety and environmental hygiene. These are the important factors that we would consider. Residents can give views on how nuisance caused by hawkers should be avoided, and we should strike a balance among all parties' interest. And I think you should play your part in identifying locations for us. If the District Council has forged a consensus, we are very happy to take forward your suggestions and implement them. So once again, I urge that you play your part as residents in the district. I would like to raise a question about food trucks. A number of people have mentioned about it. Food trucks have been placed under Mr. So's portfolio, but we think that FHB should have the responsibility instead, because it has to do with food, and it is a sort of hawker operation. So what is the FHB's views on the scale of the food trucks? Should it cost several $1 million, or should it be less in terms of cost? Do you have any ideas now? And if you have, please share those with us. Or if you say that we don't have any plans yet, then you can please tell us so. Some people were saying that they can use small vehicles to be food trucks. Give us some indication on your stance, or else the discussion will not be going anywhere. many deputations have discussed the concept of food trucks in places other than Hong Kong, Taiwan, and so on. We understand your views. The latest situation is that it is the Bureau spearheading the project is now still studying the proposal. They have an open mind as far as I understand. And perhaps in the end, we must find a regulatory regime which can promote the operation of the food trucks. I believe that the relevant bureau has heard your suggestions. At this stage, we don't have any specific proposal to share with you. I'm afraid that we can only do so later. My understanding is this. The bureau, which bureau are you talking about? Two bureaus here. CEDB. They are taking reference from overseas jurisdictions. They will look at practices in overseas countries and see whether they can be, the model can be applied to Hong Kong, say in tourist spots and where areas where there is heavy pedestrian flow and so on. Of course, they have to take on board factors like transport arrangements and so on. And our concern, it has to do with food safety and environmental hygiene. So these are all the factors that should be taken on board. Sorry, we don't have anything specific to share with you today. And at an appropriate time in the future, we would let you know the way forward. You don't have a preconceived model in terms of the scale, the funding required. You said it doesn't mean that you are willing to take on board people's views. Is that right? Yes. I said that we've heard your views loud and clear, and at an appropriate time, we would be reflecting to the relevant bureau your views. We don't have any definite plan yet, and we welcome further views on this. Ms. Chen Yunhan. Well, members have already spoken and the administration has responded. Ms. Chen, would you like to say something? Well, so I'm the chairman of the Retirement Protection Subcommittee. I was having a meeting next door just now. Well, anyway, I'm very concerned about this subject. I would like to say, or rather, I would like to hear views from deputations. The government has given us a consultation paper. Well, but I am used to seeing the government's policies from a conspiracy point of view. I like the idea of a bottom-up approach. If you can recall, in 2002 and 2003, I was organizing this bazaar in Wong Tai Sin. The unemployment rate then was very high, and the government would like to help the unemployed. So I spent some $100,000 on organizing this bazaar. And Anthony Leung at that time said that he went down to the 18 district councils and asked for ideas on or proposals on building or kicking off economic activities with local characteristics. Well, Chairman, you are familiar with the operation of the district council. Well, views may differ among different DC members. So in that case, you can imagine the results. Well, bottom up is a good idea, but then we are all familiar with the culture of the districts. Then we would be seeing people welcoming hawking activities, but then residents upstairs in certain buildings would object to hawkers in their district. So I think the government must first come up with an overall policy. Say in busy areas like Mong Kok, heavy footfall there, well, it is a place suitable for organizing hawker bazaars. But does the government have the sort of stamina to organize hawker bazaars there? Does the government want to build, say, hawker bazaars in areas with special local characteristics? In an area that I visited last week, there was heavy pedestrian flow, but there was no space for hawker bazaars. While we're talking about a bottom-up approach, I think the government must also come up with an overall policy. Some people may be very skilled at hawking, and young people are creative, and we must provide the space for them to sell their goods. So the government must first give us a policy to encourage hawker bazaars. Well, I've recently read a report in the media saying that Singapore has training for hawking traders, and they are teaching them how to deal with their licenses. So all these needs efforts to be put in that by the government. The government is right in coming up with a bottom-up approach or policy. But then if the government is not having an overall policy, then I'm not optimistic, or else you would just be paying lip service and nothing can be achieved. So the government, can I have an answer from you on my suggestion or my comments? The residents may be objecting to the hawking activities. How do you resolve the conflicts? We need to strike a balance, as I said. We would not underestimate the difficulties. We know that it's no easy task. If we want to develop hawker operations, we have to take into account the impact on the residents nearby. We have to deal with environmental hygiene issues. That's inevitable. How should we strike or forge a consensus? As I said, I hope that local residents or people in the community, please play your part and try to do something. The Secretary has already said that for projects which have garnered support from the district, we would try to help them out, and if needed, we would be willing to issue new licenses as well. We would do everything as far as policy is concerned to dovetail with these proposals. That is already stated clearly in the paper. With regard to the bottom-up concept, within the Bureau, very shortly, we would be meeting with people in the districts to identify opportunities and come up with proposals. This is something that we would do shortly. No matter who is coming up with this proposal, the key is it has the consensus within the community. Well, as far as the location and the operating hours are concerned, that should be a consensus before the projects can become successful. Chairman, this is not the way of doing it. You are just going back in what we did in the past, like the days when we had Anthony Leung. In Wong Tai-sin, we tried this out, and after I got it up and running, I handed over the project to the government. Wong Tai-sin has a large population. We've built a brand, but then the government is not doing enough to maintain the brand. I don't object the bottom-up idea, but that's not the way that that it should be done as what the government proposed. We should try to increase the number of stores, and where in areas where there are developed hawker activities, can you consider expanding them? Well, I support in principle the proposals here, but then you just shouldn't be doing something superficial. We try to package ideas, but then they can't be implemented, then it's no good. The government should also be doing something in terms of land supply. Flyover. I am confident that in the Kowloon East, we can have a lot of hawker bazaars under flyover. Now, for energizing Kowloon East, we have number 1, number 2, number 3 sites, and we have performing groups, dancers, singing groups there, and that can allay, to a certain extent, the young people's dissatisfaction in the society. But the key is how can you allow them to do business. Young people are worried that there is a lack of proper planning. If we have creative industries, then we can attract young people to join the industries. And way back in the bazaar at Wong Tai Sin, bands were attracted to do performance there, and there were business stalls. So the whole area became very vibrant. And the government is talking about the food trucks. Well, and we found that there is no policy behind this idea. The food trucks are mobile, and this is altogether a different issue. In Singapore and other places like Japan, they've been doing successfully with the hawker bazaars for the. Well, I'm a little bit long-winded. APM is very busy, but then in areas not near the APM, well, the streets are quite quiet. Well, in Japan, they use small shops to stimulate the economic activities in the certain areas.
And in Mong Kok, there used to be small shops. On Sai Street, there is the WSD building. And I think when that building is redeveloped, then in a new building, there should be a few stories or a few floors reserved for small shops. In New York, there is a very successful example. When Bloomberg was in his first term, people complained that only rich people could live in a certain area, but not the poor. And so the mayor decided that when developers wanted to construct new buildings, they had to set aside 30%. For others. So, you know, in Hong Kong, people are so hostile towards developers. So can there be small shop spaces in industrial buildings? And then when developers tear down buildings, then how can we help the operators? We're talking about hawkers. Yes, hawkers. Look at Yumen Square. There are a few floors of small shops, and they used to be hawkers. I just want to say that we shouldn't just have very stylish fashion shops. Now, many people really want some space to operate. Look at Wong Tai Sin. can I ask the permanent secretary or one of the deputy secretary how we can develop these areas? Now, I would regard that as your second round because each member can only have 4 minutes. Yes, Mr. Wong. In fact, Dr. Koh has reminded us that when there is district support for a bazaar, then we'll have to work with other bureaus. But what is important is that there must be a consensus in the district. And it is also important that a suitable balance can be struck and that the proposed operation can satisfy the demand in the district. The Secretary has already told us that when it comes to the land, we'll have to sort the matter out with the relevant departments and bureaus. I think what is important is that we have to get concrete suggestions. I still have some time left. I just want to go on. I don't need a reply from him. I think we should have a task force comprising government representatives, academics, and also representatives from the community, right? I'll say something and then Professor Ng can draw some conclusions. Now, can you try to provide some space beneath footbridges for the operation of hawkers? So when you build a new flyover or footbridge, can you make it wider? And then you can allow hawkers to sell some Chinese-style puddings. Now, say for example, if you make the footbridge 3 feet wider, of course, the cost will go up, but then at the same time, you will be able to provide some job opportunities for people, and you can try to get the district support. Now, for example, people should be allowed to sell Chinese dessert on the footbridge, but then they must not shout and cause a noise nuisance. And then a bus terminus or somewhere beneath a footbridge. Hawkers like to operate in these places. This is because there are lots of people there, and so I think you have to provide the right platform and you have to adopt a new mindset. Now, we are bold enough to propose new ideas, but are you bold enough to implement those ideas? So please be innovative. And Professor Ng. Yes. The government keeps saying that there should be a bottom-up approach. Now, forgive me for saying this. I don't think the government really understands what is meant by a bottom-up approach. In fact, we've carried out many engagement workshops. In fact, it's fun. It's like a game. And in fact, we discover in these engagement sessions and workshops that in fact many people do have placemaking talents. And people, in fact, feel very happy in the process. They learn, they give their suggestions. And in the process, we identify suitable sites for hawker bazaars and markets. And second, I always tell my students that your set of values dictates or decides what sort of space you will be creating. So, what are your values? Is it that we want to create a local bazaar, or is it that we want to promote the local community economy? Can we have a place where there are hawkers, where young people can perform, and where members of the public can gather? When people move into a new district, they find it difficult to establish ties with others, and so such public space will help a lot. In New York, they have a public space project. The person responsible for the project says that if you want people flow, then you should provide 10 activities in that place. So you have to make the place accessible, and you have to attract people to go there. You have to have different types of goods being sold at very attractive prices, and as a result, people will go there. In fact, academics as well as town planners in fact, are committed. We are willing to share our experience with you. We'll communicate with all parties and contribute our part. Thank you very much. Looking forward to your report. I think time's up. And our next session will start at 4:30 p.m. today. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.